everybody, and welcome to Hann-Made Studio. I'm Cheryl Hann-Woodlock. Today Alfred and I are going to show you, he's just taken my towel. Anyway, we're going to show you how to create good looking bowls. I'm going to show you some really simple techniques to make your bowls look really professional. So stay tuned and we'll see you soon. Starting to throw, you need to try and get consistency. A really good way of getting consistency in your throwing techniques is weighing each piece of clay. Now I've got an old-fashioned set of scales here. I've had them for over 40 years. The reason I really like them is that I don't have to find a PowerPoint, which is a real bonus. Also, if I don't have that's with your electronic ones. The battery ones, I often find my batteries go flat. So these old type of scales are really good. They're still available and they're really handy. So I'm going to weigh out for my bowls 700 grams. When the scales go up, that's when I know they're even. So that's 700 grams. It's a little bit much. Once these are weighed, I'm then going to give them a little bit of a wedge. I've got some pieces that I've put together, so I want to make sure this is worked in together, so when I'm centering, it's going to make it a lot easier. Now, this clay is a little bit on the damp side. By wedging, I'm just going to dry it out a little bit. It is a little bit tacky on the table, but that's okay. I can work with that. That I'm getting is from Clayworks Australia. They make their own clay. Now with making their own clay, they make it in different types of wetnesses. With the types of clay you can get soft, very soft, medium firm, and then firm and very firm. You can ask your supplier for the different type of firmness that you want. Usually for my bowls, I want them medium soft. I don't want them so soft because the bowls are going to be wide and they need to hold their shape. If I'm doing a bowl that's going to be 1 kilo in weight or 1.5 kilos in weight, I'm going to be asking for a firm clay. I'm going to be working with a firm clay. Otherwise, the bowl will collapse. When I'm doing coffee mugs, I actually get a soft clay because coffee mugs are usually just cylinders, they're very tall, they don't need a lot of structural support. So using a soft clay is going to be very easy to center, very easy to throw, and it makes the whole process very quick. The studio is rather warm at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just place these in the plastic bag so they don't dry out too much. If they dry out and get a crust on them, it's going to make them harder to center and throw. So I'm just going to put them in the bag and then I'll take them over to the wheel and I can throw. If I'm going to prepare some more clay, it is a really good idea to clean your table down. That way you don't get dry clay on your fresh clay. With this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the throwing of the inside of the bowl first. When you're doing a bowl, you want the inside of the bowl to be beautifully smooth. And I'm going to show you how I achieve that. Then the next video, I will show you how to do the outside, how the outside is thrown. So we're going to get started. This wheel head is pretty dry, so what I'm going to do is I'm not actually going to wet it, I'm just going to dampen it down and clean it and make sure the surface is clean. I was doing some work earlier this morning, so I'm just going to make sure. So that is not wet, that is slightly damp, and we're ready to go. These are my pieces of clay, and I'm just throwing that roughly into the center. I have my knee up, so my knee will support my elbow as I am centering this clay. I'm centering at full speed on this wheel, and it's pretty easy to center this clay because, as I said, it's a really soft clay And also I put it into a cone shape, so that cone shape was automatically giving it that spiral circle, so it was already centering it. When I'm opening, I often teach my students to use 2 hands and they're going to dive in. Because I've been doing this for a long time, what I'm actually doing, I've got my thumb halfway through, so I'm just going to use my fingertips and I'm just going to dive in with my fingertip there. And I'm slowing my wheel down just slightly. Now that clay is still around about 1 inch from the bottom there. I'm going to use both fingers now for support. And now it's around about, it's around about 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to tidy up that rim. So I know where my rim is, I know where the inside is and where the outside is. Now, what I'm going to be doing is compressing that. So I'm going over that and continuing to compress it. And that is the opening for my bowl. It's a round shape, it's not flat, and that's the difference between a bowl and a cylinder. A lot of people use the cylinder technique, and the cylinder technique has a flat bottom. What we're trying to do is create a curve. So we're making this round shape. So I want a rounded bottom, not a flat bottom with a wall. So that's why I've been going in and out on the bottom to consolidate that, to compress the base so I don't get S cracks. Now we're going to start pulling up. I have a foot that is around about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch thick, which means that I need to have a little bit of clay at the bottom so when I turn back I don't go through the base. Consolidating that top. Now every time I do something to my pot, I am going to tidy up my top. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually making like a little H shape. So that's where the bowl is, and that's my finger compressing down. What it's doing is it's compressing that clay down. So when I stretch the clay out, it is not going to crack. And when people beginners do bowls, they often have their rim splitting. By compressing down on that rim, each time you pull up, you're going to stop that from happening, those cracks happening. So now, the next thing is when you're starting doing your bowls, I've just wet that a little bit. You need to start from the center. So my inside finger is starting from the center and I'm going to start from the base. So you start from the center and pull up. Now I pulled it up so it's this shape, it's actually not going right out. So I'm sort of doing a cylinder, but not quite. The bottom is still lovely and round. I keep that bottom round. Now I'm compressing the top. And that's looking good. Again, wet the inside just slightly. Don't put too much water in because you don't want that water sitting on the base, otherwise you'll get an S crack. So let's go again, starting from the middle, from the bottom on the outside. I'm pressing down and pressing in and going up. Compressing that top once again, sorting it out. Just putting a little bit of water in there, not too much. And I'm going to pull up again. Now, I know I need to pull up around about 4 times. That works for me. If you're just beginning, you might need to pull up around about 10 times. It's just getting that clay to a nice thickness. So I'm going to keep pulling it up and thinning the walls down gradually so they're around about 1/4 of an inch thick. 2/3 of it, the bottom third, will be around about 1/2 an inch thick. So starting at the bottom, starting in the middle again, pulling that clay up, This time I'm pulling it out just slightly as I'm squeezing up. There we go. Compressing that top, tidying it up. Now, if you have enough slip or slop on your hands, you can pop that in. I'm just going to wet that a little bit more. Now, I'm going to slow this down slightly, and this is going to be my last pull-up. This time, I'm going to shape it out a little bit more at the base, but I'm going to pull it up, and that should be then thin enough. Starting from the middle on the inside, from the bottom on the outside, pulling it up, feeling that thickness and slowing it right down as I get to that top. Now I'm going to compress that, and that is the right thickness for this bowl. So every time I pulled up, I started from the middle and I started from the very bottom, not halfway on the inside. It was always consistently in the middle. Now that this is done, I'm going to start doing a little bit of trimming. So I'm going to trim off the excess clay that I have here. There's always a little bit of excess. So that's my excess clay. That's going to be just put to the side. This is where I now get my kidney to tidy it up and create the shape. So I'm going to do the outside first, and that's to get rid of the throwing rings. It also goes out a little bit. So that's the excess clay that was on the outside of the bowl. Now the outside of the bowl is lovely and smooth. So now I'm just going to be able to work the inside, clean my hand, make sure my hands are clean. And I do this a little bit awkwardly for some people, but I'm going to show you how I start. So I start at the top and work my way down. So all my sides are touching. Now I'm getting to the middle and I'm going to compress down really, really hard. And lift up. And that gives me my beautiful shaped bowl. Now remember I said about tidying up the rim. Rims are really important. If you don't get the top of your bowl right, it always looks untidy. I liken it to having a shirt collar that's frayed. If you don't have your rims tidy, the rest of the bowl doesn't look right. So I've got a piece of plastic here that I've used. I'm just going to clean that plastic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create this little curve. That curve is going to go on the rim, and it's just going to collect and consolidate that rib. So I'm just pulling that through, pressing down, lifting up, and that is done. And that is the scrap that I've got left over. I can take this off, little bit of water, and get my wedging wire, which is on the floor. Okay, so my wedging wire is a piece of fishing line. Just pop that through, press it down, cut it through. Now a lot of you will be using bats. Because I make 20 to 30 of these at one sitting, that's a lot of bats that you're going to be using. So I don't tend to use bats. I just tend to take it on my hands, take it off, and then I'm just going to pop it on my board. So I'll be back. We're ready to do the second one. I'm just giving my hands a bit of clay so I don't get everything really dirty. I threw the first one, I've taken it off. There's clay still on the wheel head. I'm going to leave that on because the next piece of clay is actually going to stick to it. Now I'm going to move the camera and I will see you so you can get a side-on view for how the bowl is pulled up. We're ready to center. It's not quite in the even, but if I just pop my hand on top, lock my elbow, my left elbow is locked, and that's starting to center. So pulling it up, squeezing the water out of my sponge. That's why I like using the sponge. It just holds that water for me. So it means I'm not using too much water. This clay is so soft, I can find that I can pretty much center with one hand. I don't need to use my left hand, my right hand too much. So now just pressing down, and I've got a nice little shape ready to go. Again, my thumb is in the center of the clay, and I'm just using that finger to open, my right hand to open up. So my right hand is also locked down now. Before it was moving around, now it's locked down. Put a little bit more water in there, and I'm just going back in and pressing down, getting that nice round shape. So that shape is nice and round. The wheel is now going about 3/4 of the speed. So that bottom now is nicely consolidated. The rim is not tidy, so I'm now going to get myself a rim. So we've now got a rim that is around about just under 1 inch thick. I've got a lovely base for my bottom. Now I'm ready to pull up the sides. So away we go. Remember, my finger is in the middle. You can't see that now, but my finger, my right hand is on the bottom, on the outside, pressing down into the wheel head first, and then it's going to squeeze in and pull up that clay. So away we go. The other thing with my hands, my thumb is actually connected to my right hand. So the clay is going to go up evenly with my hands, and that is then being pulled up nice and evenly. Consolidate that top. There we go. Now I've got a lot of slip in my hands. I can use that slip now to wet the inside of that pot. Before I couldn't do that because what had happened was I was using fresh clay and I didn't have a lot of slop and slurry around on the wheel. So by using the slip that I'm getting on my hands, I'm not actually adding water, so this clay is not going to get wetter. I'm going to start at the bottom again, finger in the middle, finger in the top, thumb is resting on the other hand, consolidating it, supporting it, getting that ridge and pulling that ridge up. Just slightly out, not too far out, and the wheel is slowing down as I'm bringing that up. That's pull number 2. Consolidating that top, getting rid of that scrap clay. I don't want that scrap clay, that's going away. Now that slop I can put back into my bowl so it doesn't grip. You don't want to get your hands gripping on the bowl. So that's nice and wet. And that's the reason why I use a sponge on the outside. That's so my hand doesn't grip. So now I'm going to do another pull, and this will be the last pull up. I'm just squeezing at that bottom there, squeezing. Now I'm not squeezing so hard because that is quite thin. That's from here to here is around about the same thickness. Now I'm just going to go back down here to do that final squeeze to get it nice and even, because I want to pull up as much clay as I can, so that way I don't have so much clay that I'm going to be trimming off. So one more time, this time from the bottom, that's right, and I'm going to just pull it out slightly. So this is my last pull. I'm pulling it out and moving up. I'm not squeezing so hard at the top, because remember, 2/3 of this bowl, half of that bowl from there up, was the right thickness. I just wanted to squeeze down the bottom to get that even. So I'm just cleaning my hands. That's my 4th squeeze. That is now right to trim up. Going to take off the bottom so I can see my shape better. Take that excess clay off. Now along here I've got throwing rings. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want those throwing rings on these bowls. I'm going to use my kidney with my finger in the middle, my thumb's resting on the kidney, just tidying up that outside. So my thumb was actually resting on my hand, and I'm going to get rid of that excess clay. Now I'm ready to do the inside. So I'm leaning over the other way. I'm just going to pull that out slightly, slow the wheel down a little bit more. hold the kidney firmly. I'm almost at the bottom, and I'm going to compress that. And now I have a lovely rounded bowl. So I've got my piece of plastic. I'm going to make it rounded. So I've got that nice rounded shape. That is just going to go on top of that rim. Nice and gentle. Push it down. Lift it up. That's the scrap that I've got from there. Take that off. That bowl is now ready to take off. So clean my hands, and this is, you can't see that, but what I'm actually doing is scraping on the side of my rim, and you can see my hands actually become quite clean. So I'm just scraping rather than getting a towel. Putting some clean water. It's not really clean, but it's not bad. I'm now pressing down on that, cutting through once. It started to move slightly, cleaning that wedging wire, cutting through twice, and now it's moving. So we know that's ready to take off. Clean my hands again, slide that off onto my hands, and away I go. Got the bowl. Woohoo! I just thought I'd give you another angle so you could see it from the other side of what I am doing and how I am throwing. So I've got my leg up, so you can see my leg is actually higher than the wheel tray. I need to do that so I can support my elbow. It gives me a lot more support. Put that clay on, and we're ready to go. So let's get the centering done. And the elbow is really locked into my leg. instead of a ball, he's actually using balls of hard clay that I've left out. So there we go. Nothing wrong with a little bit of casting. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Cheryl Hann-Woodlock and this is Alfred from Hann-Made Studio saying, see you later. Also, remember to stay tuned. Good boy. Remember to stay tuned in the fall because we have some upcoming videos showing you how to turn back your bowls to get beautiful feet, just like Alfred's. See you soon.